We're going to discuss the Rebbe's Sicha in Chelek Chaf Aleph, Parshas Zachor. And instead of going in the order the way the Rebbe presents it, I'm going to start off going through the various Rambams that the Rebbe talks about, and then explain how the Rebbe and the problems that are there on these Rambams, and how the Rebbe answers them. And then based on the Rebbe's answer, I would like to deal with another issue that the Rebbe does not address in the problems in the Rambam, and explain how with the Rebbe's answer that will be answered. So in Hilchis Malachim Perik Hey Halacha Daled, the Rambam writes, Mitzvah Sasei Lahachrim Shiva Amnim. So Mitzvah Sasei to destroy the 7 nations that possess Eretz Yisrael at the time, and Shenema Hachrein Tachrimein. Chol Shabal Yodei. Now here is an interesting halacha. We're going to discuss it a little later. Chol Shabal Yodei Echad Mehem Leihargoi Eiver B'Leisase, which would seem to be that any individual that comes across a member of those 7 nations has to get rid of them. But then the Ram adds, they don't exist anymore. Okay, now comes the next halacha, when the Rambam introduces halacha hey, in other words, there's a continuation from before. The question, what is the continuation? There are those who want to say the continuation on this halacha also, that if you meet an Amalek, you got to kill him. We'll see from the Rebbe that it's not so pushing. But anyway, he says you got to destroy their memory, from obliterate their memory. And then goes the next. And this is the one that the Rebbe focuses on, as we are going to be learning. Now, mitzvahs, I say, Lizker, Tomid, Maisov, Haroyim, Arivasa. You have to always remember his evil deeds and his attack. To inspire our hate. I mean, you have to say it, you have to remember it. I want to take note of something that is not discussed in the Sikha, but will eventually be answered through the Sikha. That there's no mocker that you have to hate him. You have to remember what he did. But it doesn't say in Chazal hate. It says, remember what he did, remember how he attacked you. Now, you could say, and that's obviously the way it's understood, that that's obviously to hate him, but it's not more. Anyway, again, I want to, you'll note how the Rambam doesn't stop focusing on the hate. Perek Vav, Halacha Daled, he talks about some other issue about that you could accept them if they make peace with you, and they are willing to accept mitzvahs. You can let them live. Okay. Now, the Rebbe quotes twice the halachas and sefer mitzvahs, and I want to see how these are brought. The mitzvah nun tes, again, shehizirana mishkoyach mashaslan hazer amalek, what the Amalek's children did. The higdimam lahazik, they're the ones that started us with us. Now here, the Rebbe says an interesting lashon. Krabiyarnu b'mitzvah kuf beit tes, which is the zichiras Amalek. Mitzvahs I say, lisker masha oslan Amalek ulechadesh sin osoi. Mitzvahs I say, lechadesh sin osoi. You gotta constantly renew. It's gotta be constant sinner. And then again, he brings don't forget him, Mishkoyach, I say. He means lois, I mean, it's a lois. So he Zachor Perlstein, Kloimar. Now he translates what that means. Again, sinner. And then he brings the mitzvah of Liska Mashasal and Amalek Mahagdime Laharalam. Remember that he was the first. We have to say this all the time. And to inspire the Nishvashis to fight him. And to encourage them to hate him. Actually, it shouldn't even get weaker, that sinner. With the fact that time passes. And then he brings the pasuk again, and he goes on speaking about it, talking about it, and he explains how important that is. Okay, so the Rebbe asks various questions. The Rambam seems very, very clear that the reason to remember is in order to go to war. In other words, it seems that the remembering is tied into the war. So the Rebbe asks, nowadays, you can't go to war with Amalek. But one of two things. Either because one of the conditions of war is as we saw. And we'll get to other conditions that aren't met today. Or because the Kvarov Zichram. Zachor Bilbul Kalayla. Zachor mixed up the world. There's no way of finding him Amalek. Tell a story about somebody who did, killed him. That'll go with that other discussion whether there's a private mitzvah too. Then the Rebbe asks, one of the other questions the Rebbe asks, why do we have to remember Amalek? Go kill him. Get rid of that. What's the memory? Does it say anywhere that you got to remember the disgusting actions of the 7 nations? No. You don't have to remember anything. Just don't kill them. Get rid of them. And especially that there seems to be some correlation between the two. The Chain mitzvahs say lamed. But that question is even stronger because it seems to me there's a connection between the two mitzvahs. Why is there a special mitzvah Shiur? Another question is, there's a Shiur, which we're going to be doing what Parshas Zachor is about. There's a takana of a Shiur to read Parshas Zachor in Shiur, B'tzibur. The Rambam brings in Hilchos Tefillah. And why there's no special kriya on any of the other 5 Zechiras that we do every day? Only on this. Now, there are answers given that we didn't want to talk about the Egel. We didn't want to talk about Miriam because that's negative. Shabbos, we're always remembering it. Only a special kriya. Matan Torah, we do have a special kriya already. That's the Magen Avraham. On Shavuos. Okay, so we can find, but why this? Especially that it's not Negeya. What's so important? Remember, that doesn't seem to me. Those other ones seem much more important to remember. Then they've asked another question. The mitzvah Schira is on an individual, every individual. We have everybody running to shul, Binyomin for women. Mitzvah Mechia is part of Melchama. As Rambam writes, Tzivonu lahachri zera Amalek, and he right away brings the din of Shalosh mitzvahs l'stavu b'shaskin sasalar. They have 3 mitzvahs when you come into Yisrael: to appoint a king, build the Beis Hamikdash, and destroy the Zera Amalek. And the Rambam called it a Melchemes mitzvah. Melchama is a tzikudik thing; it's not a private thing. Now here we get into that issue. That the Rambam, if the chain goes on the other things, so there's an individual mitzvah too. I saw that the Rav Soloveitchik from the yesterday Soloveitchik wants to say that there's a klolis that commits, a pratis that commits. I'm not sure that we have to go there in Hilchis Amalek, in Chias Amalek, but there's room to say so. But even then, I don't believe that mitzvah comes about by itself without the klolis that mitzvah. At least. And then I've also mentioned the second problem, that we don't know who the Malek is. So why rush, go? Okay, and then we have this issue, which we've not mentioned in the Sikha, mentioned the idea of sin. Why the sin in Eva? Chadish sinosai, Sashlich sinosai, Nizarazam lisne eisay, like the Cholish sinosai, the Techshim of Azim Echazman, it's like Tosus sinosai melavavis. Oh, where does it say sinner? Okay, so again, we said you can learn it out, but if you really look at the chinuch brings the mitzvah, and he tells us about how terrible he was, and doesn't say a word about sinner at first. Why? Because it basically means he's terrible, get rid of him. He's a danger to your existence. Afterwards, midine ha-mitzvah, because it has to be Shiur b'lev and b'peh, so he means that we should hate him. And he brings the Lashon Hara, as we know the chinuch very often does. But the b'itz itself, he doesn't bring the Lashon Hara. So the Rebbe, I want to be clear. My understanding of what the Rebbe is saying. Amalek is Amalek. Amalek is not. There's no question. There is a real Amalek, and that is where the main mitzvah is, to destroy the real Amalek. However, the Rebbe says, first, one you say, what Amalek is also a concept, and you can't destroy it. Not you can't. It's going to be hard to destroy the Amalek, the physical Amalek, without getting rid of the concept of Amalek. And the concept of Amalek exists in each and every person. It's probably one of the most fundamental concepts. Amalek represents the idea of Yedeya as Beirei U'Mechavan Limud. Now, we, as Hasidim, ask pretty much any person that learns Chassidus, yeah, that's who Amalek is. The Rebbe does take a note in our number 38 and says that he hasn't found the mucker except in Chassidus. Only Mamar Chassidus. This is a very, very interesting idea. That it's such a massive point, and yet there's no outright mucker on it. That brings out a medrash. To learn that medrash, it's a tough medrash. Things that are said there are very hard to understand. But nevertheless, that's the mucker. Okay, it's a good enough mucker, but that's the say. About it. Malek in Chassidus is Yedeya as Beirei, knows who the Avish is, Staven Limrid by, and doesn't want to follow. So the Rebbe says, you know what Shiur Amalek really is about on the individual level? You got to get rid of the Amalek in your heart. There's Amalek in every person's soul. There's the potential for Amalek that causes a person to rebel. And when you remember Amalek, you eradicate it from your heart. And in order that before you come to the Amalek Kipshuta, you have to first take care of your own Amalek. And obviously, the Sikh goes into a lot of details and beautiful stuff, why he did it on the way out of Mitzrayim and every little aspect, but we're dealing with the iyun of the Sikha. That's the seed of the Sikha. And in the end, the Rebbe comes along and says that through doing Schiras Amalek in the time of Golus, that you destroy the Amalek in the lave of the person, that will bring about you will accomplish the Mechiyah Begashris through Mashiach. And he will take care of the problem that we don't know who Amalek is, who Amalek is. And as the Lashon Rambam in the end of Hilchos Malachim, Yilachim Melchemes Hashem, Melchama Hashem B'Amalek. That's Melchemes Hashem. One of the concept of Hashem is Amalek. So, while they're not taking away the part shot in the pasuk that you have to eradicate Amalek, but there's a vital condition to get there is to take care of the Amalek in your heart. And that's why there is a Shiur Amalek in the big tumult of it in the Zman HaGolus, because in the Zman HaGolus we need to take care of our Amalek that exists in the Zman HaGolus. And therefore there's a special mitzvah of Shiur, because you're not going to become to eradicate Amalek in yourself, and not you can't compare it to the Shiva Hamana. And that's why you have Kriyas HaTorah. The Rebbe explains that Kriyas HaTorah gives a koyach to eradicate it, because Torah gives the koyach to everything. And that's an individual mitzvah. Yeah, I want to note an interesting thing. That while, and I mentioned the Sikha, that there are different mitzvahs that learn that the mitzvah of Mechiyas Amalek is a melech, is a mitzvah of the melech. And he definitely has to require a melech, right? As we learned. Yet, everybody has to eradicate a melech from their heart. Why don't you say the melech should eradicate a melech from his heart? He should do this here. So perhaps, just explain that, the Rebbe quotes the Lashon Rambam many times in Perek Gimel, that the melech is libay hu leib kal Yisrael. His heart is the heart of Klal Yisrael. So if the Jews have Amalek in their heart, he can't do his job. He's lacking the leib kal Yisrael. That's just the side point. But I want to go to based on what the Rebbe said, I think we can maybe Chiddush answer, why do we have to hate him? Why don't you just get rid of him? Knock it out of your head. Kabbalah Seil. So perhaps Alter Eben Tanya, very cute, when he explains the Tzaddik V'Tevlei, and even the Tzaddik Ra'alei to some degree, he says how the key point is that their connection to the Eibishter is such that they cannot tolerate Ra. They're mayas and seinei the Ra. The degree depends. Tzaddik Ra'alei, Tzaddik V'Tevlei. But the word is that it's not only a test. In order to really connect to the Eibishter, you need to hate the Ra. So perhaps the one area that's required by every Jew to be a tzaddik gomer is when it comes to the inyan of Mechiyas Amalek. As Lashon is kol mashu min asitcha achad tzaddik gomer soine betach lasina. So perhaps every Jew has to be that way when it comes to Amalek. That since it's an inyan of idei of Rebbeinu Mischav Limud Bay, therefore we need a sinna and an eva in our heart in order to accomplish the mechiyah. Or it should be a real mechiyah. Perhaps you can go a step further. In practical halacha, you cannot eradicate Amalek unless there's a true sin in it. And that's what could lead to mistakes where you leave things and explain to them, as we find by Shaul, right? That the Eibishter said that he said to him, I left them because of I wanted to bring my karbanos, right? And that's a logical thing, of course. I mean, obviously, if so it's a holy thought. But if there were Ava in Sinner the way it should be, that couldn't happen. And that's why even in the practical, you need that Sinner and Ava. I mentioned this to my colleague in Yeshiva, Rabbi Silver, and he added a point to me, and he said that perhaps when it comes to tshuva, we need charota and kabbalah. He says, "I need charota. Just take kabbalah. Go ahead, don't do it anymore." And he said a similar word that without charota, you can't have kabbalah. If you really don't. You really don't realize what was done is no good. You cannot have a kabbalah lahaba. I once heard from I'm going to quote my Mechutin, Rabbi Manas Friedman, that he said that even in charata, if it's a charata about what you did, it's not a real charata. It's feeling bad. It's not charata. Karate requires you to know what damage you accomplished, what your relationship with the Eibush has been affected. Then there's a real charata. And the same thing with when a person does something to somebody else. You feel bad. But when you see the damage that you did to that person, that's when you have real charata. That's in charata Kabbalah, but I think it's the same thing in Sin and Ava. Why it's so, the Rambam makes it so integral. You cannot accomplish it. You will not accomplish it. Unless you can't stand them. You cannot tolerate them. Only then will you accomplish it. Okay. Hatzlacha Rabba, seid gesund und stark. And till next time, seid gesund. Und mit sich sehen. Noch einmal, seid gesund.